Thank you.
Well, welcome everyone to Duke University Cryptogamic Herbarium. My name is Blanka Aguero and I'm a collection manager of the Bryophyte collection here. Duke has about 800,000 plant specimens, and of these 800,000, about 250,000 of these are bryophytes. And if you are having your Zoom set up for gallery view, maybe you now want to mouse to your upper right-hand corner and click there onto view and select a speaker view so that you can see me a little bigger and you can get more of this. And this is going to be just very quick. Our collection has been established in the 1920s by Hugo Blomqvist, and it really grew into its current size by activities of Dr. Louis Anderson, who you might or might not know as an author of the moss flora of Eastern North America. And so Louis Anderson got specimens on exchange from all over the world, and many of them you've been databasing today, and I really thank you for your help. And so what I wanted to share with you today is, well, if you have 250,000 specimens, how do you feel? I have to be able to find every single one of them. So how do I do this? Well, the specimens at Duke are stored in these metal cases. And when you open the case, this is a little different from what you have seen in Field Museum. In Field Museum, you have each packet neatly filed in, behind each other. Well, what we do here at Duke is we have our specimens in folders, and they are clipped on to sheets. So it looks like this. And so on one sheet, I have up to 8 specimens. And they are very meticulously organized. And I've seen many herbaria all over the world. And I would say that this one is probably the most organized herbarium out there, meaning that it's quite colorful. You can see some folders are blue, some folders are red, some folders are manila color, and the color is indicative of the geographic origin of the packets that are inside these folders. But so I wouldn't jump over. You have several ways to organize collections so you can find the plants. You are using the plant name, the genus, and the species name. So if you have a small collection, usually you organize your plants by alphabet. So Anomodon starts with A, and so it's going to be filed before Barbula, which starts with B. And then you jumped on the species name, and Anomodon attenuatus is going to be filed before Anomodon viticulosus, because A is before the alphabet. Makes sense. Well, if you have, the thing is that as the research progresses, bryophytes and other plants often change names. And so it can happen that plant that was called Haplohymenium is now called Anomodon. And if you have a huge collection and you have to move all your stock of Haplohymenium forward into Anomodon, well, it could happen that you would be moving, 250,000 specimens around, and it would be very impractical. And so what we do is that we store the specimens by relations to each other. You know that, or you may not know, the plant nomenclature has several levels. And so what we do in herbarium, we store specimens by families. But within the families, we have them stored by genera alphabetically. And within the genera, we have them stored by species alphabetically. And the family gets assigned a number. And the number in our herbarium comes from a publication about 20 years ago that reflected the known relationships among the families and among the genera, which means that, chances are that you are going to be moving the example that I used, the Haplohymenium, we already knew was member of the family Anomodontaceae. And so I'm really moving just within a case or two. But you have 105 families. And so here, if you can show that, we have each case has a sign, and it tells me that this is a case number 5 and a family number 2. And in the family number 2, it's Phagnaceae, it's family of peat mosses. Duke has about 15 or 16 cases of peat mosses. This is actually our largest collection. And the laboratory that's here at Duke University is specialized on research on peat mosses. So that's why I actually brought you in here. But here around the collection, we have these fascicles of papers that basically are alphabetical lists of all the genera. So if I browse all the way to the S and I'm looking for sphagnum, which is the Latin name of a peat moss, I'm gonna find Sphaerothecium sphagnum, number 2. And so I know that I have to go to a family number 2. And then I open a case and I know that I'm looking for Sphagnum phallax from Europe. And it's actually some particular collection number. So all our American collections are filed in these manila folders, and all the collections that are from other continents, they are in these blue folders. So I know that I can zoom right away into the particular species and go into my blue folder stack. And within those blue folders, again, the continents are separated. So I can pull out, you know, I'm narrowing down my list to just a very few sheets that I need to go through. And that's really all I had to tell you. If you have any questions about the collection or about the herbaria generally, unmute and go away and ask. And thanks for your attention.
Hey, thank you, Blanka. Really interesting, really insightful.
I'm curious, wait, does all the volunteers know what a family, genre, species are?
You do, because if you look at your label, you have the name in there. So for example,
I know, but I'm saying, like, do they know what that concept is? Like, if you're not a biologist, you might not know how species are classified, so you wouldn't know the classification levels. So I'm just checking if everyone knows the classification levels that you're talking about.
So if you haven't heard of the classification of life,
Yes.
I can maybe sum it up. There are several ways to classify, and the most used in the herbaria for simplicity is the Linnaean classification. So Linnaeus was a Swedish plant botanist in 1700s who is very important in the plant research because he simplified the way researchers back then were naming plants. Back then, it was common that a plant had 5 or 6 or 7 names to basically describe how it looks like. And he shortened this to just 2 names, to a genus name and a species name. And so this Linnaean classification is hierarchical. He is grouping these species into genera, and he is grouping genera into families. And then the family is the level where we are, you know, that we use to organize our specimens, but there are additional levels. Families of plants are grouped together in orders, and orders are grouped in classes. Classes are grouped in divisions. I usually go the other way around. And up all the way up to kingdoms. So we are in the plant kingdom, in the division of Bryophyta, Bryophytes, so on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I actually have a question. So in our herbarium, we don't use any higher level classification to organize our bryophytes. It's just everything is alphabetically ordered by genus. What could you compare that, like the merits of that system to the merits of using like basically organizing by family and then genus? What do you think about that?
I think it's simplification. If your collection is not huge, then I would say don't make your life too crazy. Go ahead and do it alphabetically. It's then when when you have 110 cases and you really could be moving haplocladium to anomodon, then it becomes a problem.
But wouldn't you have to do that anyway, even if like you organize by family?
Not really, because the changes, the switches of genera, of species among genera are in 90%, among its family, among its relatives. It's when you get these systematic studies where people are now using DNA information and they analyze sequence data and they realize that the morphology doesn't always clearly tells you how plants are related. That there can be a similar morphology that evolved multiple times, and so you can get similar plants that are in fact unrelated. That's why you get these changes. That usually doesn't happen in across in distant branches of the tree of life. Where it's going to happen now is in the mosses that have just one ring of peristome teeth on their capsule. There are going to be some familiar changes even within families and newly established families, but these revolutionary changes are relatively rare.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Matthew and Blanka, it's also different for different groups of organisms, right? So for fungi, I think they do it alphabetically because there's just so many changes and so many unknown that different molecular tools and technology is just rapidly changing our concepts.
That's part of the reason I was asking, is because I'm thinking about reorganizing our non-lichenized fungi to be alphabetical by genus, and right now it's the other way. Thank you.
I would say these days we have a huge advantage of computerization and plant databases available, and even the thesauri of the list of plant names have improved hugely, and so we don't really now need to be moving these plants across the sheet, from one case to another, because you can program your database and set up a preferred name for, and this way you can track where your plants are. What is important is that you know into what case to go, and so you need to know whether your particular barcode is filed under the name that's on the packet or under some different name. Right?
You totally nailed it, Blanka, because you can imagine where we were yesterday with a collection of 3 million flowering plants, concepts, family concepts, genera concepts change. But with the database, you can just say this specimen is filed as or filed under this name, go to that cabinet. And it's so much easier to rearrange a database rather than a physical collection of, in this case, 3 million.
And I would say one reason why we wanted you to help us with these 5 particular fields, we didn't want you really to go into the names, because the name that appears on your form, that's the name under which I find the specimen in the case. If you change the name, you get me into trouble, because I will know that, yeah, I have a packet here somewhere, but I don't know where it is, because the name under which it's database, if I go there, the specimen isn't to be found. So we wanted to make sure that we keep our organization.
We have a saying, right? A misfiled specimen is a lost specimen, because there's just no way of finding it again.
At the same time, these databasing projects where I go and pull out all packets that haven't been barcoded in database before, I find a lot of lost folders that were tucked neatly under another folder and filed erroneously. So this is also a big discovery for me. I mean, every time I go here, I pull a new box, I find something new that was lost.
These grants are really interesting opportunities for that, because it's so infrequent that you're just going through every specimen. Like, we have found things that were misfiled, and who knows how long ago they were misfiled. How long have they been missing? You know.
I also found from experience that our herbarium is meticulously organized when it comes to North and South America, but when it comes to Europe and the rest of the world, it's less ideal. And so I had actually a huge part of my job is not just, barcoding and taking images, but rearranging, moving plants into their proper names, because the species concepts differ, and the species concept differ between Europe and North America. And yeah, it can get complicated.
Thank you again, Blanka.
Thanks for having me.
Really insightful. Would you like to do another tour tomorrow? Hey, thank you, Blanka. So we are coming up to the hour. In fact, we are on the hour. Let me